Continuing my conversations with 35th District Representatives, I'm with Dan Griffey right now. Dan, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Jeff?
I'm good. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to hang out with Congresswoman Randall, who was in the district, and one of the places that she visited was Turning Point. And today on the Hill is Survivor Advocacy Day. And this, I think, for you is a huge day to hear really impactful stories from folks on bills and laws that you've been working on for the last 12 years, your whole time up there in Olympia.
No, I mean, it's important, right? Society, I think, should be, and I believe society should be measured on how we take care of those that have the weakest voices and are treated the worst. And starting with domestic violence, the coercive control, sexual assault, so much devastation, and then in Olympia they get distracted, right? And they want to fix something else. I don't get distracted when it comes to this. I'm always there, and resources will be available as long as I serve here in Olympia.
You've really been able to work across the aisle with many of your counterparts on the Democratic side to really explain the issues as you know them and help bring them along in some cases to get to a really good place now. We talked last week about the rape kit testings and how they've gone from a backlog to readily available or readily analyzed in a timely fashion. And so when it comes to those types of wins for you, and then you hear from folks like the great people at Turning Point about what that difference makes in people's lives, can you just explain that to folks who either know a little bit about domestic violence through what they read or they see on the news, but maybe they haven't had a family member go through this, and what the shortened amount of time frames do for people and what the additional assistance does from basically the start of the whole process?
Well, I mean, I've been pretty open about it. I'm living through it. My family's a living example. One individual has absolutely controlled our lives for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. It's terrible. Surviving domestic violence is one of the most traumatic and resource-intensive things that a human will have to survive. And having those resources to make sure that those that are abusing them don't win is my mission, right? We don't provide enough. I will never be satisfied that we provide enough. Again, I think Olympia, it's hard to keep their eye on the ball. For me, it's pretty easy to keep my eye on the ball. Places like Turning Point and those, they're cherished resources that we have in the community, and they're absolutely necessary. A lot of people don't know all the services they provide. If someone's seeking a protection order to protect their children or protect themselves, they have resources to help them develop that. It's miserable to go through the court process. We don't make it easy on them. And Turning Point Survivor Group doesn't only put them in a place where they can be safe and they know that they don't have to look over their back and they can breathe free for a few seconds. They give them legal resources, they give them advice, they give them lived experience. Many of the people that work there are domestic violence survivors themselves, so these are real world people that know they can cut through the BS and they can know exactly what the person needs. And convince them not go back into it. All too often, we find that those that have been, they're surviving domestic violence, sexual assault, the primary breadwinner is their assaulter, and a lot of times they do the risk calculation, to say if I suffer a little bit of abuse. And my kids can eat and they can have a roof over their head, it's worth it. We want them to have a resource to break out, and that's what Turning Point gives us, and it's a cherished resource in our district.
That's one of the posters, actually, I saw there on one of the walls. It was a sentence. It was, he just hit me once or something like that. And they crossed out the just. It was like, he hit me. I mean, that's the bottom line. In a perfect world, if you were able to get as much funding as you could. What does that look like? Additional social workers to help navigate, additional
Oh,
just resources for housing, or how does something like that? What would
I hate doing this, but
I know.
I would, no, I mean, I hate saying this part, but I would adopt a model like they have for civil legal aid in California. Those that are surviving domestic violence should have civil legal aid representation. But man, that is a pie in the sky. We don't have enough public defenders. I just talked to our county commissioner, Sharon Trask, and Mason County lost their director of public defense. They're down to two almost part-time defenders. We are at an absolute crisis point. I told her that any chance that I got to speak out on that issue, those surviving domestic violence, rape, and the rest, finding justice is going to be pretty terrible if the prosecution has to drop the charges because we don't have a public defender. I mean, let's just face it, all the good work that I've worked on and it seems like you've advocated for, that all goes away if they have to dump the trial. And that's, again, another reason why, once again, I'm back in the laboratory testing world. I talked about it last week, trying to get us into a position where WSP can get our DUI blood samples, our tox lab can get it back to us in a prosecutable amount of time. Right now, they're waiting 22 months. Right? These are all real threats to the safety and security of the people I represent, and I will live there until we fix it. And sometimes you just have to absolutely cry the loudest, yell the loudest. There's all kinds of techniques you got to use here. But when it comes to domestic violence, it's letting those surviving it tell their stories and giving them a safe place to do it. And usually we can convince them that that's the right way to go.
What sort of support are you getting from Mason County Sheriff or Thurston or Kitsap, whoever's in the 35th, when it comes to advocating to try to speed up this process, to get these processed a little faster?
Complete support. I communicate regularly with our sheriffs. Less Sheriff Gacy up in the north. We represent such a small portion, but he's an amazing champion. And when we were talking about police use of force and eliminating the prohibition on police pursuits and those sort of things, all three of the sheriffs were invaluable to our work here. We cherish all of them. Sheriff Sanders and Ryan Sperling, right? They're dear friends, colleagues. I got their phone number. I call them and ask them, how will this, how are we going to fix that, or will this actually fix this? They're ready, available for me, and an asset to the decision making I do here.
One of the things that we talked about, and this will be the last little part, so I know you got to get off, but one of the things we talked about at your legislative send-off was kind of already hearing, don't be asking for more, and this is regarding state funding, I guess, in different departments. Don't be asking for a lot of additional monies. It's going to be hard to pass bills into law that have more financial impact because of the finances of the state. Is that holding true? I've heard a little bit about some of these different tax proposals from the governor's side of the aisle and things like that. What are you hearing about kind of those levers of government, how they're moving?
Well, let's just face it, Jeff. If they pass an income tax, they're not going to get a lot of money right away, so they're going to have to cut. We just don't have enough money to pay the bills, right? So how do we do it in an organized fashion? How do we do it making sure that we prioritize those services? Like last year, we cut $800 million from Medicaid for Washingtonians, which lost us $800 million from the federal government in federal Medicaid match. And now the majority is talking about a $400 million shortage in Medicaid after cutting $1.6 billion. So I don't like those cuts as much as I hated those cuts. I also said in those send-off is that this majority here will blame so much on the current federal administration that they won't solve problems here. And I'm really concerned, Jeff, that that's going to be the case, punting and kicking the can down the road. Capital flight in Washington State is a real threat and is really happening. If we make business regulations and just doing business too hard, businesses will leave. Those with the capital to do the things that we want, to build houses and all those sort of things, we want as many of those people in Washington State as we can possibly have. So I still stand concerned, as I said at that legislative send-off, that we might be going the wrong way here in Washington State, but we seriously have to look at what we're spending our money at. Or, unfortunately, I think we keep going down the path of needing another $2 billion every legislative session, and I find that to be unsustainable.
When I was talking with the Congresswoman yesterday, we talked about small businesses, and she had a roundtable at the Civic Center with many of those. And what I think, we talked about this, but please, when you talk about capital leaving and businesses potentially leaving, oh, there we go. Nope, you're still there.
I don't know what happened, Jeff.
No worries. No worries.
Okay.
I got you. So final thing on this is when I was talking to the Congresswoman about small businesses, a lot of what happens in Mason County and even parts of Thurston are like micro businesses. A small business considered, 500 or less employees.
Sure.
Those types of places that could potentially leave because of different taxing implications. I mean, those are, to us in Mason County, those are large employers.
Well, they're huge. And last year we charged a 9.9% service fee. So if you were in a service industry, we charged you 9.9% because you're providing a service to the community, physical therapists, doctors, lawyers. Jeff, like I said before, if we're going to have an argument about tariffs and the federal government and all that kind of stuff, let's have real arguments about taxes are actually taxes.
Yeah.
The majority here will say tariffs are taxes, which I absolutely agree. I think tariffs are absolutely bad for Washington State. There is some creative ways that this administration is using it, and I think there is some beneficial outcomes nationally. But yeah, tariffs do end up being a tax on the end consumer, but taxes certainly do as well. And we are absolutely regulating and taxing our small businesses and our micro businesses, to use the good Congresswoman's language, out of existence. A business's job, Jeff, is to be profitable. And if we make it too hard for them to be profitable or to exist and deliver their goods and services, they will have to either close shop or go somewhere where it's not that hard. This is easy to understand.
35th District Representative Dan Griffey on the line with me now, and I appreciate your time. I'll let you get off to the day, and we'll check in next week as we keep moving through this session. It's got to be we're almost halfway done, I'd imagine, here before too long, right?
It's getting there, yeah. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate talking to you.
Yeah, good to see you, buddy.